This wasn't a bite, it was a wedding, and Lucy never saw the knife. In Bram Stoker's Dracula, Lucy's first bite isn't just horrid s. A rain-drenched ballet of desire and doom. Her attacker is Gary Oldman's Dracula, an anti-hero whose smoldering eyes and smarmy charm are a shocking contrast to his violent nature. But how does director Francis Ford Coppola blend romance and predation so seamlessly? What's with all the rain? And why is Lucy wearing white? And what's the significance of her gown turning red? We break down the secrets of one of cinema's most iconic moments, frame by frame, and reveal how deleted scenes made the bite even darker than you thought. Plus, find out how this moment redefined vampire seduction forever. This is the greatest scene you've never seen, and we're gonna tell you why. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, and now let's continue. Before we dive into the deconstruction, some context is needed. Lucy Westoner is the embodiment of Victorian innocence. She is purity. In fact, her name is a direct reference to the biblical figure of Lucifer. She is light, but she is also naive. In the opening moments of the film, she is seen frolicking through the streets of London with her girlfriends like some supernatural sprite. Later, she is seen bathing nude, which is perhaps the most pure and innocent thing any human can do. In both instances, she's utterly carefree, but Lucy is about to meet her doom, and it comes in the form of Gary Oldman's Dracula. When we first see him, he's shrouded in darkness, lurking in the shadows like a predator preparing to strike. He observes Lucy from afar, consumed by desire, and soon he makes his move. Now we need to analyze the bite itself frame by frame. So let's go to the expert. Bram Stoker's Dracula was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the 1993 Academy Awards. So it's no surprise that visual effects supervisor Tom Woodruff Jr. is eager to break down the intricacies of this iconic sequence. He says, "The bride is about to enter and she's coming up the stairs." And Francis wanted to have this feeling that Dracula was almost dancing as he came out of the shadows to meet her because they were going to be man and wife. And then the kiss leads right into the transformation. And that was designed to be very balletic and very slow motion. As the newlyweds embrace, Dracula tenderly kisses Lucy on the neck, but his touch is anything but tender. A single drop of blood spills down her, and in a flash, the bride-to-be becomes the bride of darkness. According to production designer Dante Ferretti, that drop of blood was real. It was squirreled away from the previous night's shoot. It was taken from the mouth of a bull that had been slaughtered for a previous scene, and it was kept warm until they were ready to use it. That's the only way they could make it look like it would flow. As Lucy recoils in shock, Dracula licks the blood off her skin with the tip of his tongue. He is intoxicated by the taste of human blood, and he cannot resist. Dracula sinks his fangs into Lucy's neck and drains her of life essence, and with each thrust a new drop of blood blossoms on Lucy's pale flesh. By the time Dracula is finished, Lucy's entire gown is stained crimson red. If that sounds painfully detailed, it's because it is, and that's not an accident. To understand why, let's take a brief detour into color theory. The traditional meaning of the color red is strong, powerful, exciting, courageous, active, hot, dynamic, loud, demanding, vibrant, full of energy and life. If we apply that analysis to Lucy, we begin to understand why she is so affected by the color red. Red excites her, it overwhelms her, it gives her energy and life, but it also dominates and consumes her. Remember, Lucy represents innocence and purity, everything that Dracula is not. So by covering her in red, Dracula essentially corrupts her. And the more blood that covers her white gown, the more impure she becomes. And this is where Coppola's direction is masterful. The gushing blood isn't just a special effect, it's a metaphor. And Coppola doesn't allow us to forget that for a second. Now, let's talk about the deleted scenes. One of them finds Lucy standing over her own grave, and when Dracula approaches, he doesn't bother hiding in the shadows. He strides confidently towards her, because in death, Lucy has become his already. Another deleted scene finds Dracula crashing through the window of Lucy's bedroom, his face obscured by darkness. When she screams, he growls, "Don't cry, you'll be beautiful," before sinking his fangs into her neck. Clearly, these scenes would have made the infamous bite even darker than it already was. But why did Coppola cut them? Well, according to Bram Stoker's widow, Elizabeth Stoker, who served as a consultant on the film, those scenes were cut because they were too brutal. They didn't feel right. You knew that those scenes weren't necessary to the story. They were there just to titillate the audience. If there's one thing that critics hated about Bram Stoker's Dracula, It was the love story at its center. Many felt that the romance was unnecessary, distracting from the horror, but Coppola defended his creative choices, saying, "I do want to think I could have done the picture if I didn't believe there was a love story." It is a movie about a love story between two people who are different from each other and who are able to communicate despite their differences. There's something very positive to be said about that. I like happy endings, and that's a happy ending. While the critical response to the romance was mixed at best, audiences loved it. In fact, the love scenes between Oldman and Frost were so popular that they were included in a montage at the end of the film. This montage was added specifically to appease audiences who were confused by the ambiguous conclusion of the film, and it works on several levels. On the surface, it romanticizes the doomed relationship between Lucy and Dracula, but if viewed through a more cynical lens, it mocks their doomed relationship. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide how you feel about the romance. But what's undeniable is that Coppola created a masterpiece of mood and atmosphere. But how did he do it? Well, according to veteran cinematographer Vittorio Storaro, the secret is simple. There was no CGI, everything was for real. It was a perfect opportunity for me to make my dream come true, which was to use natural lighting and natural elements to produce visual effects. That meant lots of smoke, fog, mist, heavy curtains, practical, in-camera, visual effects. And according to production designer Dante Francis was adamant that if a scene didn't work visually, then we should try to redesign the set rather than try to fix it in post-production. So if a set was working in terms of lighting or camera angles or just the overall visual design, then we would rip it apart and start again. And that brings us to the most important element of the scene, the rain. According to Dracula expert and author of The Vampire, A History, rain in Gothic literature is often used to symbolize purity. Think of the opening pages of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the trial scene in A Christmas Carol. Rain washes away impurities, cleanses the soul, and therefore is an apt symbol for Lucy's state of mind. But as the film progresses and Lucy becomes corrupted by Dracula, the rain takes on a darker meaning. It symbolizes death and decay, much like the blood that covers her gown. So on the surface, the rain seems to have multiple meanings, but according to author Elizabeth Stoker, the rain was there simply to wash away the blood. It was purely practical. So what's the legacy of the scene? How has it influenced horror cinema, and has its influence been overstated? Well, according to author David J. Skoll, the scene repopularized the vampire craze of the late 70s and early 80s. It also inspired the blockbuster success that was Twilight. Stephanie Meyer herself has cited the scene as an inspiration, saying, "The first time Bella and Edward kiss, I imagined it would be very slow and sensual, like the dance between Lucy and Dracula in Bram Stoker's Dracula. But was this romance or predation?" Well, in a 2022 interview with The Guardian, Sadie Frost herself called it both. She said, "It was a weird power dynamic. Gary was playing such a predator, and there was something very primal and kind of frightening about that. Yet there was also a great love scene between us. That was a weird mix, something I've never really experienced before or since. And actually that's what attracted me to the part. The whole thing was shot in this sort of dreamlike state. I wasn't really supposed to react to Gary as much as react to the idea of him, and that made it easier because otherwise it would have been a bit weird." In the end, the scene is open to interpretation. Lucy represents innocence and purity, while Dracula represents experience and corruption. Their love is doomed from the start, and yet it's undeniably passionate. Was it a genuine romance or just a clever ruse on Dracula's part? Well, that's up to you to decide. What stood out to you in this scene? What made it so effective? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.